Conversation with Ron MacLean.
Welcome to In Conversation. Today on the show, Matt Quinn of Mount Joy, one of the hottest bands in the land, and joining him is Nolan Patrick of the Philadelphia Flyers. So it's the second time we've accessed a great rock act, and to have Mount Joy on the show and Matt Quinn is very special. They're getting over 100 million hits on Spotify. They're just doing such a great job. Their second album, Rearranges, is out on June the 5th, and we'll go through some of the success of the band here in the last 5 years. And the reason that they're on, of course, is that Nolan Patrick plays in Philadelphia. That's the hometown for Matt Quinn, and he and a good buddy, Sam Cooper, ended up going to school together and then ended up reuniting in Los Angeles, forming the band Mount Joy. The story with Nolan is really neat. He's kind of run the music in the room with the Philadelphia Flyers since getting there. Great junior career. He comes from a hockey royalty, really, in Winnipeg. His father, Steve, played in the NHL. His uncle, James Patrick. You can go through the whole family and find either pro or elite level athletes, but he loves music. And it's funny because when the St. Louis Blues won, we all remember that song Gloria, and it was Joel Edmondson of Brandon, Manitoba. He used to play the boombox. Well, Brandon's where Nolan played his junior hockey. Maybe that accounts for why he's running the music in the Flyers room. In any event, it's a day of hockey and great music. The Broad Street Bullies, Mount Joy. The hits just keep on coming.
But if it's the drugs, the women, the white, the weed, the love.
Now Weiss getting toward the net. That one deflects just wide. Weiss got it back in front of Patrick. He scores! Goal number 1 for Nolan Patrick.
Tell the ones you love them too.
Here comes Nolan Patrick. Shoots, he scores! What a beauty! Off the bench, right into the slot. Just a deft play there by Patrick.
Up on the mountain, caught on the rail line.
And here they are, Nolan Patrick and Matt Quinn. Nolan's in Winnipeg, Matt's over in Philadelphia, where his heart lies, his sports ticker in particular. But Nolan, why don't you explain? We're really blessed to have the lead singer of Mount Joy on the show today, and it's kind of through you. So how did your friendship arise?
Yeah, so they came to Philly in the start of the year last season. So I just went to a show, and then after the show, I just hung out with Matt for a bit, and then kind of just kept in touch ever since. And
what's your version? Yeah, sorry, Nolan. What's your version of it, Matt?
And prior to that, so it was obviously seeing the concert and then meeting him afterwards.
And Matt, your version?
I don't know. Just some guy broke through security in Philadelphia. He came swinging. He was on skates, and it was hard to stop him from getting backstage. And after like a pretty long tussle, I figured out who it was, and we kind of made amends from there. But it was cool. I was completely surprised, just literally walking to get my family. Actually, I think the show was in Philly, and saw Nolan, and he ended up hanging out for a bit afterwards. And yeah, like I said, we kept in touch since.
That sense of humor, Nolan, that Matt has, honestly, you see him in various interviews. If he picks one word to describe himself, it's usually goofy. Why do you two get along? I know you love the music, and who doesn't? But what's the connection as far as friends?
Probably just both laid back guys, I think. I think listening to his music and listening to his lyrics, you assume he'd be a relaxed guy, chill guy. So obviously when I met him, we hit it off pretty quick. And I don't want to pump this tech much. He's not that good of a guy, but it's nice once in a while.
A lot of, when you put together a band, it's like putting together a hockey team, obviously, Matt. So we talk about this a fair bit. Where do you see things that you can learn from athletes as pertains to your musical career?
I mean, I actually, I grew up like everybody else, probably watching hockey, watching sports. And I think there's tons of parallels from, obviously the camaraderie of the band versus the team and stuff like that. But also there's so much of the, hockey world, but sports in general, business side of it that's public. The fans get to see how a team can, like contracts and all of that stuff is very public. So as a kid growing up watching, you're sort of exposed to the business side through sports a lot. I think we use a lot of comparisons to sports all the time like that with, the managers in music are kind of like coaches, and there's a lot of parallels, I think.
Well, actually, let's get into this fascinating story we were having, Nolan, about death. There's a beautiful new song on Rearrange Us. The album comes out on June the 5th, and it's a great song, but the title Death at the time of coronavirus. So you and your agency, your label, I mean, it has to be a very interesting conversation that you've been having, Matt.
Yeah, the conversation was like, oh no, what have we done? And we've had a lot of conversations in general just about putting out an album during, a time when there aren't any shows and aren't any gatherings, which is sort of what, our promotional machine hinges on, is having shows and bringing people together. So that was just another one of the many sort of like, issues that have come up with releasing the record, but definitely felt like we had a little bit of egg on our face releasing a song called Death. But, ultimately the song's sort of about appreciating life. So maybe if people dig in, they'll be okay with it.
Music in your life. I mean, you're sports through and through, mom, dad, the whole family, Nolan, but clearly music plays a vital role. Tell me about some of the influences and how you use music as part of your life.
Yeah, so most of like my favorite musicians probably came from my dad. He's big music too. So driving to games, you put on a song, and every time, I heard this in grade 8, I heard that in grade 7. So he knows when they came out, when he listened to them. So it's pretty cool to see that. But I honestly listen to music all day, every day. I get up, music's on. So it's obviously a big part for my life. And then for sports, getting ready for games, it's something that is always going in the dressing room.
It was interesting. Tyson Berry was telling me, like, he's good friends with the Lumineers, Wesley Schultz, and he said a lot of the music you wouldn't expect me to listen to, but when I got moved over to Kelowna, left home, and I was kind of not alone, but I was a bit lonely. So the songs I ended up listening to were darker than most people would think the hockey player would listen to. What about you?
I don't know. I listen to a lot of Mount Joy, so it's not that dark. Some of my close buddies are all into similar music, so whenever we're hanging out, it's usually a competition who can dive the deepest into YouTube and find an old performer, a cool clip. So that's kind of something we do a lot, is just look for live performances on YouTube and all that. So that's what we do.
Same. And you're right about Mount Joy, for sure. Jenny Jenkins, you look at Astrovan, of course. And here's a story about silver lining, and you've heard a few of them, Matt, but I'm going to read you from the Humboldt Broncos. We had a horrible tragedy, as you know, 2 years ago, and lost 16 lives. One of the players, Tyler Smith, lives in Leduc, Alberta, and he wrote to me, one of the first songs I heard was Silver Lining. I think I connected with the song so much because of the fact that through the tragedy, you need to work to find a silver lining or lights at the end of the tunnel in your new normal. He mentions drink your wine and let your heart still beat. And I think that goes right along with our team and the way our hearts were filled because of the people around that dressing room every day, whether it was Darcy, their coach, Darcy Hogan, the late Dana, who they lost, Dana Braun, the trainer, to all the boys. And he says, drink your wine. We used to get together and watch The Bachelor and drink our wine. And the last big line that hits me is that tell the ones you love that you love them, because that truly is the most important thing in our lives, to remind everyone around you how much you appreciate them. Tell him he is a musical magician, and I would be honored if he knew what he was to me in my healing journey. That's Tyler Smith of the Humboldt Broncos. How's that make you feel?
Wow. I had no idea. Obviously, I was aware of the tragedy, and that means a lot that song reached him and those guys during such a difficult time. It's amazing,
isn't it? For you going over to Brandon and playing with the Wheat Kings and having such a great career there, that Western Canadian accident, I'm sure, Nolan, hit you right in the heart as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, you hate to see something like that. And, in Brandon, we're on the bus driving your whole junior career. We're on road trips. So, it's scary that it happens to, someone close to home and a team close to home. It's obviously terrible tragedy, and your thoughts are still with everyone that was involved in that.
Fantastic. Okay, you mentioned your father, Steve. Your mom, Carrie, we showed a graphic of her playing national volleyball, and your dad in the NHL, of course. Music, though, who did he listen to when you said he put on his classic rock, or was it classic rock?
Yeah, so growing up, I remember being like 4 or 5 and being in the basement and just watching him work out, and he would have AC/DC concerts playing on the TV, just full blast throughout the house. But I think his his favorite musician would be Neil Young. It's kind of someone we listened to a lot growing up, and he's a big Bruce Springsteen fan too.
Over to you on that, Matt. Eric Lindros, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. AC/DC, that was his workout song. And as you probably know, Nolan's dad converted the garage into a world-class gymnasium and shooting gallery. Who are your influences, Matt?
Man, I mean, Nolan just named one of them for sure. I grew up listening to a lot of music from that era. And as it happens, a couple of them were Canadian for sure. Obviously, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Grateful Dead, Bob Dylan. Just a lot of stuff from, I guess, kind of like my dad's collection of music that was always on in the house. And I actually wasn't training to be a professional athlete, which ended up being a huge mistake. Because I think I have the skill set, I just don't have the strength or time. So that's really the only thing holding me back.
What about coaching?
Well, that's actually why I'm here. Thanks for mentioning that, Ron. If anyone is looking for a coach at the NHL level, I have some ideas, and I think I'm ready.
You do have ideas. Well, what about your sporting? Like we have Matt Stairs is from Fredericton, New Brunswick here in Canada, and he had an unbelievable home run in the 2008 NLCS. Lindros, I mentioned, Bobby Clark. Canada's we even have a guy named George Orton. Nobody knows. He was our first Canadian Olympic champion, lived in Philadelphia. Who are your heroes, sports heroes?
Man, I guess growing up, like my sort of like Philadelphia sports heroes were probably like Allen Iverson, was really big when I was growing up here. And then hockey-wise, like I remember they had that team with Lindros and John LeClair, and like
Michael Renberg. Michael Renberg was the Legion of Doom.
They had the Legion of Doom. I remember that, and that team was really great. I remember that was like, pretty much prime, like me as a kid watching hockey. I think they went to the Stanley Cup and lost to an amazing Red Wings team that ripped my heart out as a child. I think that was like a pretty incredible Red Wings team, though, looking back. So I think I'm okay with it now.
Yes, they were. How about you, Nolan? Who are your sporting heroes?
It's tough. I think my favorite athlete of all time would probably be Tiger Woods. That's probably, the stuff that he went through and then came back to, win a Masters was pretty cool to see last year. And I don't know if I'd have any real heroes as athletes, but I also am a huge Kevin Durant fan. Obviously, that move he made was, he knew he was going to get a lot of backlash from it, and to still do it and light it up like he did was pretty cool to see.
Well, that principle is an amazing thing for you as a musician, Matt. You represent or you reflect society a lot of the time in your thinking. And here we are, COVID-19, and we're trying to reopen America. And I asked Wesley Schultz this: is where do you kind of sit on trying to reconcile? One is we just need to get back to sustainability, and the other is, well, everybody's got to be safe. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I think about it or what anybody else thinks about it that's not an expert in public health. And I think people, just like Nolan's a professional hockey player, and I joke, but I can't play hockey with a guy like Nolan. These people are professionals, and they've worked their whole lives to understand viruses and understand the way disease spreads. And for politicians or for anybody else to make that decision, I think it's short-sighted.
Great. I can't top that, and I don't imagine you could either, Nolan, but if you want, you can. I would ask you about your Western career, because you played in the Memorial Cup in my hometown of Red Deer. You got to see Marner and Tkachuk and Dvorak. That line was crazy. You got to play against Leon Draisaitl at the zenith of his junior career there in Kelowna. What do you think about those? Who stands out from that London Knights team, and what about Draisaitl?
So I line matched Draisaitl when I was 16 in the Western Finals, and I think I was 1 for 58 on faceoffs that series. So there's your answer. Dominated good. And, that London team was on a different planet when we played them. That first line, it was Marner, Tkachuk, and Dvorak. You said it. Those guys are all in the NHL next year or the year after, and top 6 in their team. So. That's a tough team to go against, and they deserve to win that tournament for sure.
When you got to Philly and you looked around the dressing room, first of all, I'd love to know who you sat near and who just kind of blew your mind with their ability? Maybe even someone that you didn't know was so skilled and so dedicated.
Yeah. I sat beside Connect Me ever since I've been there. The guy on the other side of me's rotated, but it's been him for most of it. And I think Giroux, when I first got there, it was, pretty eye-opening how smart he is, and how he slows the game down. And some of the plays he makes is, you're kind of used to seeing it now because it's been a couple years of it, but he's a world-class player, and I don't know if anyone sees the ice like he does.
For you, Matt, it's, you go to a festival or you go to an occasion where you're on the bill with someone else. It might be a hero or it might be an influence that you truly admire. I'd love to know who are some of those.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the cool things about going to these festivals is sometimes you do share like a sort of backstage general area. And I don't know, I know they kind of have some Canadian roots, but one of my favorite sets that I saw sort of up close was I got to see Arcade Fire play at a festival in Vegas, and I was a fan before for sure, but getting to see them and what they did there, they played an amazing set. Portugal the Man was another one at Bonnaroo that blew me away. And recently I saw a Dead & Co. show with John Mayer playing guitar, and that blew me away as well.
John Mayer playing Grateful Dead, Going Down the Road Feeling Bad. Got to be one of the all-time greats for me. What about you, Nolan? Best concerts you've seen, who are they?
Other than Mount Joy, I'd probably go Ziggy Alberts. I saw him do a short set in Winnipeg last summer. He's pretty cool. I thought he was good. First concert ever, AC/DC, when I was 9. I had the devil horns going in the crowd, so I'd probably say that one too.
That whole idea of songwriting, you said a neat thing on the American Songwriters Instagram, I think it was you did, or whatever it was. You just said, when we wrote the first album, we didn't have to think about playing in big stadiums. Now we kind of have to, like when you saw Arcade Fire and what they do to fill the room. When you did Rearrange Us, that kind of crossed your mind, didn't it, Matt? How to write for the crowds that would be coming to the shows.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's more, I try not to think too much about like the size of the room necessarily, but I think it's more writing to the fact that you're going to have to play these songs live, and that's sort of different than being an internet songwriter, where you're almost like the Beatles, where they had the freedom to not really think about touring at all, and they could add 1,000 Mellotron flute sounds that you're not going to bring 1,000 people on the road to make flute sounds. So it's just a different process when you think about, hey, we're going to have to physically get up there, the 5 of us, and make all this sound. So how does that factor into how we actually make it? And for us, that meant really recording it in a live setting. So a lot of the sort of foundation of the record is just us playing those takes.
I'm quite pleased that the 5 of you are together because you kind of broke in such a big way. And so Terry's playing drum, and you kind of put this whole thing together haphazardly. You've got obviously Jackie from Portland, where you just recorded Rearrange Us, and Michael on bass, and Sam Cooper's your buddy from Philly. But I love that because the Arcade Fire had to make a drum switch right away to go on tour. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not. I didn't know that. But yeah, I mean, continuity's been huge for us, and having those same people go on all the tours and the hundreds of shows we played together, I think just really played a major factor in sort of the cohesiveness that we had going into making this record.
Songwriting. Here's David Byrne. I'm going to read you. This is from a book, How Music Works. And he says, the accepted narrative suggests that a classical composer gets a strange look in his or her eye and begins furiously scribbling a fully realized composition. Or the rock and roll singer is driven by desire and demons and outbursts this amazing, perfectly shaped song that is 3 minutes and 12 seconds, nothing more, nothing less. That's the romantic notion of how creative work comes about. But I think the path, David Byrne, I think the path creation is 180 degrees this model. I believe unconsciously and instinctively, we make work to fit a pre-existing formula. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm probably somewhere closer to that, where I'm often just sort of wandering around, or I'm in the bus or in the van, and a thought comes to mind, and from that unravels a song, sort of like, whether it's just a phrase or even something as simple as someone saying something to you that you hear kind of funny, and you're like, oh, that's a funny way to hear that, or something, and then you're trying to fit it into what a song is, at least in this day and age. So I think I agree with that.
Have you got a favorite off Rearrange Us right now? Is there something that moves you more than something else?
My favorite on the Rearrange Us, I think, is a song that is not out yet, which is kind of a cop out. But there's a song called Bug Eyes, which opens the record, and I think that's my favorite right now. But my favorite one to play is probably Let Loose, because live we sort of open it up and really get to jam on it, and it's fun to just kind of play with my bandmates, and that's a fun one.
Nolan, just a thought on playing. When a musician plays, writing, working in unison, I always say, it's not a thought necessarily, it's all the repetitions. You seem to have been relentlessly dedicated to this craft. When did that start, and why did you have such an appetite to do the little things to make it happen?
I think it started right from when I was a kid, just in the backyard rink. I think when you grow up in a hockey family, you're kind of, pushed to do it at the start. And my older sister was playing, so we played on the same team growing up for a couple of years. And then I think I just fell in love with it then. And in Winnipeg, you're coming home from school and you're going to the outdoor rink every day with your buddies. So that was probably the funnest part, just, having scrimmages and outdoor games there.
What do you remember about the Jets coming back in 2011?
I remember being in home ec class making a subpar sweater on the sewing machine when I heard that they were coming back. So obviously that was an exciting day. And I think Winnipeg's pretty crazy about hockey, and you obviously saw it the last couple of years with the whiteouts and the street parades when they were in the playoffs. So it's pretty cool to see.
Great atmosphere in that rink always. And your job now with the Flyers to control the music. I mean, you're a young guy to get that job. How did you win the opportunity to control what's played in the dressing room?
I remember we had a game in Anaheim, and Scott Lawton was getting sick of it, so he told me to hop on there, and I guess I won the crowd over early. So then I just ran with it and kept it going for a bit. And obviously not this year because due to my injury, but I gotta establish myself back on the Ox court when I get back.
It sounds like what you're. Scott's, by the way, from Oakville, where I live. I know I see his family all around where I am. Last thought to you, Matt. Just the Philadelphia upbringing. I guess Mount Joy is a kind of an area where you and Sam grew up. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Give me your spirit of Philadelphia, because we know Winnipeg, all the viewers that are here in Canada, but Philadelphia's got a kind of a mystical something about it, whether it's music, Hall & Oates, or sports. Tell me about growing up there.
I think it's probably one of the most misunderstood cities because of the lens that the public sees it through, in terms of crazy sports fans, many of whom are not behaving particularly well. But I think for the most part, people here are just super passionate about music, super passionate about sports. I always tell people, when they built this city, the art museum shoots straight down to City Hall. Like, they literally built the city sort of around this view of art and straight down to City Hall. And I think as a result, it creates a pretty fun town and a fun atmosphere to make music. And can't speak for Nolan, but I have to imagine being in some of those crowds that it's fun to play in front of a fan base like that too. Yeah,
last word, Nolan. You don't know where you're going to end up, and you end up with the Philadelphia Flyers. What's it been like?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Obviously, Matt was saying the fans are pretty crazy there, but they support you, and when you're playing well, they're as loud as it can be, and when you're not, they'll let you know. So you kind of hear both sides of it, but I've loved it since I've been there. It's been a lot of fun, and I think we got a bright future.
Really appreciate it. Give our love to your family there, Nolan. And Matt, can't thank you enough. Mount Joy's second album, Rearrange Us, out June the 5th. You're just doing sensational work. Continued good luck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
From hockey to hot wax, really nice to have Nolan and Matt joining us. We're back in a couple of days at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 Pacific. As always, we'll close our show with a song lyric, and it's from that song, Death, which is a beautiful song. And here's an example of why. The lyric is, there are holes in your eyes, full of impossible light. Learn to laugh when you cry. Make a rainbow in your mind. That's our show for today. Thanks for watching for all of us. So long.